Okay, so I'd just like to say something about exercises you learn at schools or the way schools often approach things. Now, the problem with the school is you've either got a grant or you've paid, but there's a whole money thing going on. I mean, I've worked privately for a long time, so if there's a problem with a student, I just say, this isn't working, let's finish it. There rarely is. In fact, if there is, it's straight away. The first lesson, second lesson, someone who's going to be a problem, they're a problem from the start, and we just sort of leave it. I mean, I've just recently had someone where the dad contacted me saying, oh yeah, he wants lessons. 12 o'clock next week will be fine. I said, well, let's wait until you've checked with him. And he says, no, that'll be fine. Of course, it wasn't fine. Following lesson, the guy didn't turn up. And that was that, you know. But what happens in schools is you've got a bunch of students and it is tolerated. Bad behaviour is tolerated because they've got your money. They want your money. So that's one problem. And as the teacher in the schools, you're limited as to what you can do about that issue because you can't just kick them out. You have to talk to your boss, etc. There's a hierarchy. Now, the other problem is, now at RADA, in the acting classes, there are 10 students, which is a good number. I mean, when I've taught privately group classes, I've gone up to about 15, but really at 15, the class becomes a bit of a nonsense. But what you'll get in these other sorts of schools is you'll get 20, 25, 30. When I've taught at drama schools, I've had 33, then I had 36. It's just nonsense and it's just money coming in, you know, and they're just, the admin staff are robbing the teachers, the school's robbing the students, and it's all a mess. But that's modern education, folks. So what happens with those groups is they look for group activities. Now, plays aren't 30 people all speaking in the one scene. You know, especially since the early 80s, plays tend to be 4 people most, you know, 2M, 2F, lots of duologues, monologues, which is why the drama schools, the big theatre schools, are always doing Chekhov and Shakespeare. It's one of the reasons. Because they've got big casts. Now, in modern theatres don't really employ actors anymore. They'll have a set costume department, lighting department, front of house department. They'll have those people will be on a steady wage on a year-long contract, but all the actors will be kept on like the worst contracts possible. So it's all back to front. So you can't have these big plays anymore because they can't afford them. Yet you go to train to be an actor and you put in these big plays. I mean, even if you're in a movie with thousands of people in it, you're not all working together at the same time. And really, that is delineated between, you know, the goodie, the baddie, the love interest, the mentor, the friend, and the people stood about. So you're really only acting with 5 or 6 people most. So what do they do? I mean, the place I was teaching at, they would always do a song because everyone can sing, right? At the same time, they get everyone together singing, or a dance, or they all hold hands. Or they just get you doing these exercises which have no value as an actor, but do soak up a group amount of time. Because the alternative is the class has to watch 2 or 3 people doing a scene. So there is a real problem in education there. You know, big class sizes are big trouble, big waste of time. But the actors, the student actors, make a choice and they think, well, yeah, but even though the classes are mostly rubbish, I I'd still get this opportunity to do my stuff for some agents at the end of the course or something. So there is that trade-off. I mean, what you can do in a big group are the vocal warm-ups, are the physical warm-ups. So you can do, if you like, what I described as my sort of lesson 1 together. After that, working in groups, you have to break the group into little sections and get them, if you like, to rehearse in sections and then come and present in sections. So in, say, a 3-hour class, you can do a group warm-up for, say, half an hour, but you don't want to go on much more than that. But then you often fall into the thing of, well, what if such and such's partner hasn't turned up? Because often you'll get in these group classes, say there's a class of 35, 4 or 5 people always feel they don't have to be there. So you'll get all that. Not if you're at a really top school, like your RADA Lambda. When I was at RADA, no one was ever absent. Because you're dealing with high-end, ambitious types. But a lot of schools, you'll get absenteeism because the students are annoyed because they're in these big classes, so they don't feel their presence is even valued, which is understandable. So there is a problem in the structuring of these things, though. Now, the difficulty I had was you can set students up with these things, but you do have to learn your lines. And you can get this mentality whereby the student thinks, the rehearsals of this play, my goal in rehearsing this play is that by the time the play goes up, I will have learned my lines. Well, no. That's not for 2 or 3 months. We're going to learn the lines pretty sharply. And if you don't, you're in trouble. So what you find in the groups is that you almost have to give out a scene each to the students. And only when the students have off book performed the scene do you give them another scene. And perhaps what you have to do almost within, say you've got a group of 30, you have to almost start to create a first, second and third team within that. So you can put all the people who like to skip classes or don't learn the lines in this bottom squad. Now, it's not ideal. You'd ideally want to encourage someone who's having trouble with lines, that means they just weren't. No one has trouble with lines, they just haven't put any effort into them. But you sometimes do want someone who's enthusiastic, able, strong, to help pull up the weaker student. But I mean, that's very idealistic, and that's, in practice, you just end up annoying the stronger student. So what you almost need to do is, if you're doing some presentation with, say, 30 students, there has to be this promise that everyone's going to do something. But those who do that first thing on time, well, will get to do a second thing, and then perhaps a third thing, so that, in fact, the idea of doing an actual play becomes quite difficult. You're better doing a group of scenes, and say your theme of the show is Shakespeare comedy scenes, or Chekhov love scenes, or scenes about business, or scenes about war, or have a theme, but trying to do a full play with more than 15 people is just a bit of a nightmare. Now, if you can trick the students by doing lots of silly songs and things like that, lots of silly dances, Okay, maybe you can get away with it. That they feel their time has been used. But again, I'm not talking about how to soak up time in an acting class or how to feel significant in a class. I'm talking about just learning how to act well and good techniques, good processes for learning how to act and what acting will be in the real world.